The Aqua10 Ultra Roller is Dreame's first robot vacuum with a roller style mop, and it's been highly anticipated. Now, we actually spent more time testing it than usual, and we actually uploaded a video on this a couple of weeks ago, but we pulled it down because we released it too soon. And to be honest, my opinion on the mopping ability of this robot has actually changed quite a bit. I'll explain more later in the video. So, is the Aqua10 the best robot that money can buy? And you are gonna see a lot of paid videos on the Aqua10, but this isn't one of them. They sent this to me a couple days ago, so let's get started with the most talked about thing, the Ultra Roller. Now, in my experience, traditional spinning mop pads can just spread the dirt around and not really get the floor quite as clean as I would like. Dreame finally has a roller mop with two features that no other manufacturers are using right now. Now, the first unique thing is this fluffing roller right over here that is placed behind the main roller and it's spinning in the opposite direction. They say at 1,000 RPM. So during cleaning, it fluffs up the roller so the bristles are extended and they don't get flattened out. And this is supposed to improve cleaning as it's touching the floor. And there's 10 nozzles along the back of this that continually wet the roller mop with fresh water as it's mopping. Also, this is able to push down against the floor with a force of 9 to 11 newtons, courtesy of these wheels. And as it's mopping, there's a scraper on the back that continually scrapes the dirt and dirty water off the roller and puts it into the dirty water tank. Now, the second unique thing about the Aqua Roller is that it has a little cover that goes over the roller. Okay, you can see the cover has come over the roller and it's gonna protect the carpet. When I put this back down, it's gonna keep the carpet dry. And also when it's on carpet, it can lift the chassis up to 14 millimeters. Now, all this sounds really good, but how does it work in practice? I spilled some coffee, very cinematically, of course, and then dried it. This coffee stain is now dried, it's hard, it's not even sticky. This test is very difficult for anything but the most high-end flagship robots, typically. So first I sent the Aqua10 out in AI mopping mode. They call it Clean Genius, and it's supposed to be able to look at your floor and determine what it needs to do to make it clean. We tested it several times, and the first time it had trouble seeing the stain. But after a firmware update, and more testing, the performance was actually much better and it successfully cleaned the stain. Next, we got some very wet soy sauce. I've put it in Clean Genius mode, which is the AI cleaning that's gonna decide for itself what's the best way to clean this spill. It did extremely well. It cleaned up all the soy sauce very effectively. In fact, it identified the soy sauce, went out, cleaned it up, then went back to the base station and then went out again to finish the cleaning. Totally successful, like you would expect with a roller mop. Did it spot the mess that I just left on the floor? That's some green salsa verde. Okay, it says it thinks it's uncleanable because it thinks it might be some pet waste or vomit or something, so that's fair. Now, before we go any further, I think we need to evaluate its performance on hardwood. So I'm gonna sprinkle 20 grams of sand all over this beautiful hardwood. Sand is one of the more difficult things to pick up because it has some weight to it. So you really need a good brush roll design. And of course you need good programming to make sure that the vacuum gets everywhere that it should and does a couple passes. Hardwood pickup was 100%, which is exactly what you would expect for a flagship robot. And after doing that test, we sent the robot back to the dock and we let it auto empty. Then we checked how much sand was left in the dust bin, and we found there was 2.68 grams left, or about 13%. It is very effective at picking up large particles, and in fact, it can see them in the app and it adjusts its cleaning strategy so that it doesn't kick them around. Now, when it's cleaning your floor, you're gonna be going over with these two dual rollers. They have these on the X50 and the Mova V50, and they're very effective at anti-tangle because they're only attached at one end and they rotate like this. And so as they're rotating, they push the hair into here. And of course, this also has the extending side brush, which is really good at getting onto baseboards and into corners. You probably want to know what is the very best robot vacuum of 2025. And we're working on that video right now. We're going to release it soon. So get subscribed if you want to make sure that you don't miss that. We measured its anti-tangle ability with both long hair, about 9 inches, and also with pet hair. And we found this brush roll design to be excellent, and you're not gonna see many tangles at all, at least in our experience. Another thing we noticed after a firmware update is that edge sweeping in my kitchen was much better. You can see the bottom of my cabinets are very close to the top of the robot, so it's actually quite challenging to get really close, but it did a pretty good job. So the second time we tried it in the living room with 20 grains of scattered rice, and it had no trouble getting right up to the baseboard the second time. It did kick some of the grains of rice out into the middle of the room, but it picked them up on a subsequent pass. I've got 8 grains of rice in the corner. Let's see how it does with the extending side brush. It successfully picked up all of the grains of rice in one pass. We also retested edge mopping in the kitchen. And again, my cabinets are pretty low and it gets in as close as it can. In the living room, without the cabinets, it got right up to the baseboards with no issues whatsoever. In our corner mopping test, it did about as well as any other flagship robot. Now this is a hard test, and as of yet, there's no robot that's aced it. Now in a premium robot, you're paying for the best obstacle avoidance and navigation that you can get. And Dreame has upgraded their Astrovision system. So it uses twin AI cameras that can sense depth and an LED fill light. It also has a side-mounted 3D structured light sensor, and they say it can recognize up to 240 different types of objects. And it has a spinning LiDAR system that is on the top of the robot in this turret. It can go down into the robot to get underneath furniture, like my stove. And this is all powered by NVIDIA chips. So this is an update to the system that they've been using in the X50, and I found it to be pretty darn good. So let's see how it does in our obstacle avoidance test. We've got a shoe with the shoelaces untied. We've got a sock. We've got some fake pet poop, and we have a power cord against the wall. The obstacle avoidance performance is about the best we've ever tested. Dreame has gotten really, really good at this. Now, what's even more difficult is avoiding a charging cable. A lot of robots have trouble with this, but not the Aqua10. Good job. All right, it just crossed a power cord. I didn't even catch that, but that's pretty cool. Also, it's able to climb thresholds of up to 1.56 inches in a double layer. This is just a little bit less in a single layer. It's probably the highest of any robot on the market right now. That's so impressive. Now, it is very good at navigating through complex environments like my table with these wire leg chairs. It has no trouble at all, and it can get quite close up to them, even with the roller brush and the extending side brush. It cleaned under my stove, which is pretty low, and it also effectively avoided the power cable back there, which has tripped up a lot of other robots. One of the most important things you can have a robot vacuum do is vacuum your carpets. So we like to test every one of our vacuums in exactly the same way, but that doesn't mean we can't have a little fun sprinkling 20 grams of sand on the carpet. And because pickup is so important, we do it twice. But the second time we do it, we grind it in with our specially calibrated grinding in dance. Aqua10 has a claimed 30,000 pascals of suction, which is the highest I've ever heard for any robot, so my expectations are pretty high. When we sprinkled the sand on the carpet, the Aqua10 picked up 70%. And when we ground it in, it picked up 65%. Those numbers are pretty average for a vacuum in this price class. The base station has a brand new look and feel for Dreame. It is very squared off and it is a little bit bigger than before. Now, it has one interesting feature that they're introducing for the first time here. But before we get to that, let's go over the basics. We have our clean water tank. We got our dirty water tank. It does have a bag, and I can feel right now it is running hot air through the bag to make sure that there's no odors that develop. That's actually pretty cool. It has automatic detergent dispensing, and there are two different options. A is just for your regular cleaning, and B is a special pet detergent that you can use to eliminate pet odors. And the unique feature here is that it has hot water mop washing up to 100 degrees Celsius. That's 212 degrees Fahrenheit. That is boiling water. And they say this should be good for getting things like grease off the roller. Now, before the robot exits and goes into the room, it's gonna cool that down so there's no chance of you getting burned. In terms of maintenance, the base plate is really quite easy to deal with. There's not a lot for you to clean. You just pop this out. This is gonna have some hair in it, and that's really all that you need to do. The rest is pretty much self-cleaning. Every time Dreame updates their app, it keeps getting better and better. And at this point, I would say it is as good as Roborock, which is probably the best. It also has a camera on board. It is a very quiet robot. We measured 60 decibels in normal cleaning. When it's at the base station and emptying the dust, it's at 77 decibels. And when it's cleaning the mop, we saw a maximum of 68 decibels. Now, Dreame is a popular brand, and this is their first roller style vacuum. And that means there is a ton of anticipation for this product. But I'm not getting paid, so that means I'm gonna be honest. And I think overall, the Aqua10 Ultra Roller is an excellent robot vacuum. It performed extremely well in most of our tests. Obstacle avoidance is about as good as it gets. And in my home over the last couple of weeks, it didn't get stuck in anything. And that is saying something. On hardwood, pickup is amazing, and even with larger dirt. And its day-to-day mopping is really good too. Now, you may have seen that we released a video on the Aqua10 Ultra Roller a couple weeks ago, but we actually pulled it down after a couple of hours because I don't think we actually tested it enough, and we kind of rushed to make a video deadline. And that was actually the wrong move on our part to post it. So in this video, I made sure that we've given it sufficient testing because I think I owe that to you. This video shows our updated testing with new firmware on the robot. And that noticeably improved mopping performance, and it also improved its ability to go right underneath my stove. And actually edge mopping and edge sweeping tested better too. So I think it was actually better that we waited to release the video. So here is our current leaderboard. So right now the Aqua Roller is in 4th place, but our rankings change every time we test a new robot. YouTube has a new shopping feature, so you might see a card down below or somewhere else on the screen. And if you want to see more robot vacuum reviews, there's another great one right here.